Performance appraisals play a vital role in the lives of most working professionals. The annual performance appraisal brings stress and anxiety to many working professionals and at the same time are keenly awaited and looked forward to. Within the country that I hail from, which is India, the annual performance appraisal is very closely linked to the increment process. So, based on the achievement of your key result areas or KRAs or possibly OKRs in the previous financial year, you are eligible for a certain percentage of increment on your existing remuneration. So, in certain other geographies, especially the Western countries, the appraisal process may not have anything directly to do with increment. So appraisal in those countries possibly refers to the process where the managers give their team members constructive feedback, and that's what it is all about. However, in countries like India, there is always this thought that the annual performance appraisal should result in an increment, and in case that doesn't happen, then there's a lot of disappointment. So when it comes to the annual performance appraisal, especially in organizations where I have been employed with in the past, so it's all done on the basis of certain parameters which are set at the beginning of a financial year, and at regular intervals there's an analysis and you are tracked or monitored pertaining to how you're fared on the basis of those key result areas or OKRs which have been set in at the beginning of the financial year. And depending on where you reach or what you fare, you are eligible for a certain percentage of increment on your existing salary based on the parameters which have been set. So, since as I mentioned, the process leads to excitement and happiness for some, it also leads to disappointment to many. And I would prefer to share with you 3 points drawn in from my experience as to how you can manage the process, especially post the performance appraisal. So the first point is, do not focus on controlling the uncontrollables. Control only the controllables which are within your scope or within your circle of influence. So your performance definitely is a controllable which you could have managed, and that's what you need to focus on managing. However, understand that the performance appraisal also encompasses certain uncontrollables which you unfortunately cannot control, and that is something you have to accept and comprehend. So control what is within your circle of influence, and what is outside that you can't do much about. So that's the first important factor. The second important factor is your boss plays a vital role in the overall process. So as I mentioned, in most organizations, the increment is based on certain parameters, and the reality is for most working professionals, the increment may not be as high as we expect or may not make a very big impact in terms of what we take home. Also, from time to time, there are instances where certain working professionals get a correction on their salary, which can be a huge amount in terms of the jump or the raise in terms of the salary. However, this happens very rarely. What my observation is, especially specific to India, the reality is, even when it comes to a hike at the time of joining an organization, if you're moved from one employer to the other, your next salary is also determined on the basis of your previous salary. So unlike certain Western countries where there's a specific remuneration which has been fixed for a specific role, and you end up getting that. However, it's very different in certain countries like India, where your previous salary determines what your next salary is. The only thing you can do is negotiate, and you can negotiate up to a certain level, and the reality after that is you end up as a part of appraisal getting an X percentage of increment which may not be very substantial. And that's the reason many working professionals have this thought of switching jobs to ensure that their salary increases over a period of time. So without going into the merits or demerits of jumping jobs, that's another discussion by itself, focusing primarily on salary increments as a part of appraisal. So many a times, it's not going to have a major impact. So for example, I was speaking to one of my friends who is employed with one of the top IT organizations in India. So he, in spite of his performance, he ended up getting a 5% increment. So that is a reality. So many a times you may not get more than 15%, or you may get 5, 10 or 15% increment as a part of your annual appraisal, and that's a reality. However, at times there can be a correction based on your performance, and in case your boss wants it to happen. So you've also come across times when people put down their papers and negotiate and get a higher salary and stick back to the organizations. So that is also a reality. However, there's also another point which I have observed is, in case your boss wants, definitely there can be a correction in terms of your salary. So understand one thing with regard to your entire career in an organization, as well as the performance appraisal or the increment process. You like it or not, your boss plays a vital role. So maintaining a good relationship with the boss, as well as trying to bring out the points as to why you need a correction in your salary, or you require to have a higher salary than required, or than what is supposed to be assigned to you, is going to be extremely vital. So in case your boss is convinced and your boss truly wants you to be a part of the team, he or she would definitely fight for you with the top management and get the higher increment for you. This is what I have observed myself. So even if there are certain parameters set and there is a certain stipulated increment which most employees or most team members get, in case your boss goes to the top management and puts the argument in your favor, definitely there's a possibility that you may get a higher increment than most other people in the organization. So boss management is going to be extremely vital. The third point when it comes to the annual appraisal process as well as the increment, always keep your emotions in check. So many a times we would have got a higher than expected increment and we get really excited and we share it with a lot of people. At the same time, there may be a disappointment because we did not get the increment that we deserved, or possibly we didn't get very good feedback, and we end up sharing that with a lot of people. So regardless of whatever the scenario, be it terms of happiness or sadness, try to keep it within you. Try not to express your excitement or displeasure with people or too many people in office, because a lot of people may not be your well-wishers. There may be a few people who may be your well-wishers. They may be really concerned and happy for you depending on the situation. However, most people, they may not be truly happy for you. So please ensure that whatever emotions you need to display, you can display it at home or possibly with close friends of yours beyond the office. However, at your workplace, don't express any disappointment, or in case you've got something beyond what you expected, please don't also show it off, or please don't show your excitement too much, because the reality is you don't know who is actually your friend and who is not. So these are the 3 points which I prefer to share with you pertaining to managing the process after the performance appraisal as well as the increment that you secure. The first point is focus on controlling the controllables. 2, boss management is definitely important. And last, however not least, please keep your emotions under control. Understand that performance appraisals, the primary objective actually is to obtain feedback. However, we all have this thought of securing or obtaining an increment, which is fine. Nevertheless, please ensure that whatever feedback or inputs you get from your superior as a part of the process, you take it positively, because that's going to be extremely important when it comes to your career growth. So please understand your career is like a marathon. It's not like a sprint. So you will need to ensure that whatever inputs that you get, you imbibe that and use it as a platform for your growth in the future. Do not take anything too personally. In case there is some negative feedback given to you, take it as a tool whereby you need to get better and achieve the next level of success. And also remember that at times you may not get what you deserve. In such a scenario, what you need to do is to check whether you want to continue with your organization. In case the learning opportunity is there, please focus on that, because especially at the early stage of your career, what's most important is the learning. If you have a good boss, a supportive boss, then you should prolong your career in an organization. However, if you feel a lot of factors, including the increment, are not going in your favor, and you've spent a certain number of years within the organization, and you're not looked upon as a rolling stone, then you can always look at opportunities beyond the organization. However, this has to be at your sole discretion, and you have to be convinced that there is not much of a future for you within the organization. So all the very best in managing your performance appraisal process, and especially the process after that, which is even more difficult to manage. Thank you very much for your time.